Today, I'm going to tell you the story of little Piney, Manitoba, and how it has become a perfect example of the difference between Justin Trudeau's treatment of law abiding border crossers versus the illegal kind. Picturesque little Piney, Manitoba. It's like any small town across the Canadian prairies. It has a relatively low population, just a little over 1,700, and you basically have to commute to everywhere for everything. Piney sits about 130 kilometers from Winnipeg, but Piney is also just 5 kilometers from the U.S. border. In fact, Piney is so intrinsically linked to the border and their American friends just on the other side of the border that the local airstrip straddles the two countries. Because Winnipeg is so far away, the good folks in Piney have been traveling across the border to the United States for generations, for groceries, services, their jobs, and even their health care. It's true. The hospital in Rosso, Minnesota is the community of Piney's only hospital. The Minnesota hospital serves the emergency needs of those people living in this little Manitoba town. It's where the residents of Piney, Manitoba have their babies. And because of this, many of the residents of Piney hold dual citizenships, as they were indeed born on American soil. While they live in Canada every day, many of them cross the border to go to work in the United States at Polaris Industries or Marvin Windows or any number of the other local businesses in Rosso, Minnesota. Piney is a perfect example of how closely linked us Canadians are to our friends along the other side of the longest undefended border in the world. But it's also a perfect example of how the Liberals favor people who cross that very same border illegally over people like those in Piney who have been doing it legally for generations. You see, on November 26th, the Canadian Border Services Agency is reducing the hours at the points of entry at South Junction, Piney, and Tolstoy, Manitoba. The Piney border crossing, which right now operates from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., will be reduced by 5 hours. So the new hours of service will be between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. What this means is that people who live in Piney only have an 8-hour window to get to work in the United States, and that doesn't include their commute time. Likewise with medical appointments and medical emergencies. Still just an 8-hour window. And kids who played sports on teams across the border, well, they can pretty well forget about playing sports this year. According to local Conservative MP Ted Falk, this will result in huge detours to other border crossings for people just to get home from work. The next closest border crossing is a half an hour east, resulting in a full hour added on to everyday commutes. And this is all assuming that everybody's babies are born on banker's hours, 9 to 5. So the Canadian government is looking to save money by limiting the access of law-abiding Canadian citizens to their jobs, health care, and friends and family just a stone's throw away on the American side of the border. Let's compare this with the treatment of illegal migrants who are crossing illegally every day onto Canadian soil. Illegal migrants are pouring across the Canadian border. Some 36,000 have already illegally crossed from the United States to claim asylum here since President Trump tightened up his immigration enforcement. According to a report in August in iPolitics, the Canadian government has spent at least $215 million on illegal migration since 2017. That number covers migration costs from April 2017 through to June 2018, just a little bit over a year. We know through earlier access to information investigations that the Canadian government gives illegal migrant and refugee families up to $50,000 in cash benefits per year. At just one illegal border crossing alone, at Roxham Road in Quebec, the Canadian government spent over $5 million in 2017 and the first part of 2018 on temporary housing, food, and water for illegal border crossers who entered Canada there. That's just one illegal border crossing where people are breaking the law to come into our country. And we've all seen the photographs of the kind of concierge service illegal migrants who take a cab to the Canadian border from New York are getting at Roxham Road. I reiterate, this is an illegal border crossing, and yet the federal government will now be putting up a brand new building there to process these illegal border crossers. Nearly 96% of illegal border crossings happen at Quebec, and the majority of them happen at this one location. They don't need a new building there. They maybe need a wall there. The problem in Piney is that those folks are law-abiding. They will begrudgingly add another hour onto their daily commute just to stay on the right side of the law. But they shouldn't have to. And it's high time this Liberal government started treating these law-abiding Canadians as well as they do illegal border crossers. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To see my full coverage and the exclusive access to information documents that detail the $50,000 in cash aid that goes to illegal migrant and refugee families here in Canada, go to www.50,000.ca.